out the door.
Howdy, y'all. It's Curious Raven. We are on day 11 of Octoberspook. We only have 2 more days left, okay? Halloween is coming up quick. One of my sons is going to be a cowboy, and the other one is going to be like some type of shadow grim reaper. I don't know. And then my stepdaughter wants to be some anime character. But I don't even know. I might dress up as something, but I'm not sure. I don't have any ideas. But here we go. This is a sort of a short one. It is by Wordmule, and it is named I Should Have Stayed in Bed. My eyes blinked open to the soft, pale glow of the morning light filtering through the curtains. I lay still, my body sunken into the familiar dip on my side of the bed, the weight of sleep lingering in my limbs. The silence was comforting, and I reached across the mattress expecting to feel the warmth of my wife beside me. Her side was empty. I frowned. My fingers brushed the cold, undisturbed sheets. Lisa never woke up before me on her days off. I pushed the thought aside, trying to shake off the lingering fog of sleep. Maybe she'd gone to the bathroom or been called into the ER last minute. They were always short-staffed these days. I glanced at the old wooden clock hanging above the dresser. 6:17 a.m. Too early for Lisa. My stomach nodded with unease, but I told myself not to worry yet. Maybe she was downstairs making breakfast. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, and was greeted by Middo, our cat. He wove between my legs, his purring loud and insistent. I reached down to stroke him, absent-mindedly, before stumbling into the bathroom, the chill of the house creeping into my skin. The stillness of the house unnerved me as I splashed cold water on my face. The only sound was the soft hum of the heater kicking on, filling the empty spaces with a mechanical distant drone. I pulled on my housecoat and headed down the dimly lit hallway, Middo at my heels. Coffee first. The thought was comforting, routine. I moved towards the kitchen, but something stopped me. Middo's bowl was empty. Strange. Lisa was always the first to feed him in the mornings. A flicker of confusion passed through me, and my gaze fell on her purse, hanging from the back of the kitchen chair. Her car keys were still on the rack by the front door. A sense of unease prickled at the back of my neck. I crossed the room to the living room window, brushing aside the heavy curtains. The landscape outside was barren, under the pale winter sky, the frost glistening in the early morning light. Lisa's car sat in the driveway, untouched. "Babe, you home?" I call, my voice sounding hollow in the stillness. No answer. I fed Middo, his purring louder than ever, as the coffee maker began its slow drip. I waited, tapping my fingers against the counter, trying to shake the creeping dread building in my chest. Something was off. I grabbed my phone from the bedroom, hoping for a message. Nothing. I hit the call button, but my heart sank when I heard her ringtone, a familiar melody vibrating from her nightstand. She hadn't taken her phone? Now the worry set in, sharp and sudden. I threw on yesterday's clothes, my fingers fumbling as I laced up my shoes and stepped outside. The cold air hit me like a slap, biting through my thin layers. The house stood alone on the outskirts of the town, fields and forests stretching for miles. There was no movement, no sound but the whistle of the wind through the trees. Then I saw her. Lisa stood at the far edge of the property, just before the dark line of the trees that bordered our land. She was still in her pajamas, and her thin silk nightgown, a stark contrast to the frozen landscape. Her back was to the forest, facing me unmoving. "Lisa?" I called, my voice quivering slightly. "What are you doing? It's freezing out here." She didn't move. She didn't respond. I took a few steps towards her, my heart pounding harder with each one. A strange sense of dread clawed at my chest. As I approached, she began to move backward. She was still facing me, but her steps were slow, deliberate, retreating into the shadows of the forest. The trees seemed to swallow her whole. "Lisa!" I yelled, breaking into a run. "Wait! Stop!" She disappeared into the trees. I stopped at the edge of the forest, the towering pines looming overhead, casting long, dark shadows across the frozen ground. The cold felt sharper here, biting deeper, as if the forest itself was colder than the rest of the world. I hesitated, my breath clouding the air in front of me. Everything about this was wrong. Lisa hated the cold. She wouldn't wander into the woods in a nightgown, not in this weather. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, crossing the threshold into the trees. The world changed instantly. The sounds of the wind and the distant hum of the house disappeared, replaced by an oppressive silence. My footsteps were muted on the frozen ground, the air thick with an eerie stillness. "Lisa?" I called, my voice small in the vastness of the woods. No answer. The trees crowded in on me, their dark branches like twisted fingers reaching towards the sky. I moved deeper, my eyes straining to see through the thick underbrush. Every shadow seemed to shift, every tree standing like a silent watching sentinel. The cold bit through my clothes, but I pressed on, my pulse quickening with each step. Then I heard it, a voice, soft and distant, carried on the wind. "Edgar?" I froze. It was Lisa's voice. Something about it was wrong, too delicate, too close. "Lisa?" I called, spinning around. "Where are you?" The silence pressed in, thick and suffocating. Then once again the voice came. "Edgar, this way." The voice echoed from deeper in the woods, sending a shiver down my spine. Without thinking, I ran toward it, panic now fully taking hold. Branches whipped at my face, roots seemed to rise up from the ground, snagging my feet and tearing at my clothes. The cold air burned in my lungs as I stumbled through the forest. Finally, I broke through the trees into a large clearing. The ground was frozen, barren, and lifeless, the trees forming a circle around me like towering sentinels. Far edge of the clearing, I saw her, Lisa. She was hunched over, her back to me, her nightgown streaked with dirt and blood. Her shoulders shook with soft, pitiful sobs. "Lisa?" My voice cracked, tears of relief welling in my eyes. Before I could take a step, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket. Startled, I pulled it out and glanced at the screen. It was Lisa's number. A cold wave of confusion and dread crashed over me. I looked from the phone to the figure in the clearing, my heart pounding in my ears. With a shaking hand, I answered, "Hello?" "Edgar?" Lisa's voice came through, frantic and full of fear. "Where are you? I've been trying to call you for hours." My throat tightened. "What? I'm in the woods. Where are you?" "I'm at home," she cried. "I went out for breakfast with Lacey, and when I came back, you were gone. I've been calling and calling." I stared at the figure in the clearing, still sobbing, still covered in blood. My mind reeled as I struggled to make sense of what was happening. "Lisa, if you're home, then who?" The line cut out, the phone in my hand going dead as the battery drained in an instant. I stared at the dark screen, a cold sweat breaking out across my skin. The sobbing stopped, but was replaced with a soft, soupy giggle. Her arms hung at strange angles, twisted and contorted unnaturally. She took a step backwards towards me, then another, her body jerking and spasming with each movement. "Run," she whispered. Her voice was no longer human. I didn't wait. I turned and ran, my feet barely touching the ground as I tore through the forest. The laughter echoed behind me, growing louder and more hysterical, a sound that chilled me to my core. My heart pounded, my breath came in ragged gasps, and still I ran faster than I ever thought possible. Branches lashed at me, roots tripped me, but I didn't stop. I could hear her. No, it, closing in, its twisted limbs crashing through the underbrush, its laughter ringing in my ears. Finally, the edge of the woods came into view. I threw myself through the trees and collapsed onto the frozen grass, gasping for air. When I opened my eyes, I was surrounded by paramedics, friends, and Lisa. The real Lisa. She was holding my head in her lap, her face streaked with tears. They told me I'd been missing for 6 hours. I said nothing. I couldn't explain what had happened. No one would ever believe me if I tried. So I told them I didn't remember anything after making coffee that morning. But I know what I saw. They kept me in the hospital for a few days, running tests and scans in my brain to make sure my breakdown wasn't related to something serious. When the test came back clear, I was prescribed some medication and ordered to see a psychiatrist once a month for 3 months. And then they sent me home with a note granting me 1 month of paid leave from work. Lisa took a couple of weeks off of work to stay with me. She never left my side. Wherever I was, she was. Admittedly, it was hard looking at her the same way after what happened. I felt paranoid, uneasy, terrified that whatever chased me through the woods would still be out there, just waiting for me to come back. Or maybe it will come for me in the night. I hardly sleep anymore. I spend my nights listening to the ticking clock above the dresser, while who I think is Lisa sleeps soundly next to me. A few days ago, I was in the basement doing laundry. It's a chore that both Lisa and I tend to procrastinate on. I pulled out an armful of dirty clothes from the overwhelming laundry basket and stuffed them into the washer. I looked back into the basket and froze. In the bottom of the basket was Lisa's nightgown, the same one the thing had been wearing in the woods. An awful feeling blanketed over me as flashbacks filled my head. It became worse when I reached in and pulled it out. Her nightgown was tattered and torn, stained with dirt and dry blood. Okay, well, that was a really creepy story, and it was a very good story. I'm guessing he had a run-in with a skinwalker. You know, they do mimic, and they can turn into certain people or certain things, so you gotta be careful. I hope y'all enjoyed that one. I will see y'all tomorrow, but until then, remember it's scary out there. Please like and subscribe.